Welcome to Making Sense of It All with Jesse Stakes. The real estate market in Florida has been absolutely crazy the last several years. The pandemic brought thousands of people to the Sunshine State, and the supply of living space has definitely not met the demand. Since then, new neighborhoods have been constructed, apartment buildings have sprouted out of the ground in every major city, and the home rental market has seen demand that it has never seen the likes of. My guest this week is CEO of Roundtable Property Management in North Florida, Cindy Browning. She and Roundtable like to say that they put people before property. In the property management business, I don't think there's a better approach that you could start with. You're typically dealing with families on both sides of your job. People purchase rental properties as investments that they hope will one day better the lives of their family. Someone else is renting that home to shelter and protect their own family. So I'm not trying to steal Cindy's thunder. So without any delay, enjoy my conversation with Roundtable Property Management CEO, Cindy Browning. Let's jump into it. So, Cindy, the name kind of speaks for itself, but if you would you please tell my audience what you guys do?
So we are a full service property management company. We do Jacksonville, St. Augustine, Orange Park, so the Northeast Florida area. We handle everything from tenant placement to collections to repairs to leases to everything. So we're a one-stop shop for owners who are looking to rent out their property but not deal with the headaches of property management.
It's one of those things where people always think once they get a little bit of money behind them, they always think, okay, I'm going to invest in single family residences as rental properties, but they don't realize all the work that's behind it.
That is true. It is a nonstop um, business. It really is one of those, like I could say 24/7, because there's somebody who has something going on at all times. So it's one of those things that owners, when they get into it, they're like, I can do it myself. It's going to be super easy. And then once they start getting those 3 a.m. phone calls or tenants not paying, then they're like, you know what? I actually don't want to deal with this anymore. So it's usually when we get the calls and they're like, nope, you deal with it. I want to be hands off.
So that being said, before we dive into everything, what on earth made you decide to do this as a profession? Where did you start? Did you go to school for this, or what inspired you to jump into everybody else's problems as what you want to do for a living?
I actually have a pretty interesting backstory. So I was a bartender, and at 18 I got pregnant, and at 19 had my baby. And I realized I cannot be a bartender and have a baby anymore. Uh, I had 2 years of college, so I had my AA, and I was like, I just don't really know what I want to do. And my sister was like, you need to get into real estate. You can make your own schedule. And I was like, okay, great. So I started out just as a realtor for a couple years, and then decided that flipping houses and renovations was what I really truly like to do. So I opened my own flipping company when I was, I think, 21. So I flipped houses for about 11 years. And then I I have hang my license at Roundtable Realty, and I'm good friends with the guys. And one day they were like, man, do you know anybody who, wants to be a CEO and build the business and this and this? And I made a joke and I was like, well, I could do that. Like, my business runs itself. And um, it wasn't a joke because they did not let up on that. So next thing you know, I took over as CEO of the company a year ago.
Very cool. So let's talk about Roundtable before we jump into to the property management part of it. Roundtable Realty, how long have they been in the Jacksonville area?
So I think they've been open for, I want to say, 11 years.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, I think 11 years.
And they started as a they started just brokering properties and being a buyers and sellers agent, correct?
Yes. So they were the two brokers, Howard and Keith. They worked for a builder for a really long time and then decided, hey, we want to do things our way. Our slogan is people before property. And that's how they really wanted to just build the business. So they opened the brokerage and just started selling houses and listing them for themselves, and started slowly bringing on agents that had the same mentality, and then decided, let's open the property management company.
So tell me about that, because property management is very different than selling homes. What was it, as far as, I mean, just the fact that there was an opportunity there, or what was it that made them decide we want to be in the property management business?
I think that they saw the opportunity to bring over the people before property as well to that, and that there was a need for people um, who needed a property management company that could put the people first. So I think that was the mentality to start it. And they had some clients that did have pretty big portfolios at the time that were like, we're just not happy with other property management companies. And so they kind of were like, all right, let's see if we can make this happen. So they opened the property management company 4 years ago. So it's been 4 years in the making, and this is where we are now.
A better time, right? I mean, the Florida real estate market, especially the rental market, has been on fire.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like right now it's kind of like the rest of real estate. It's kind of softening. Like 6 months ago, we could get crazy rental prices and like just throw it out there, and people are like, yeah. It's slowly starting to slow down a little bit, and we have to pull owners out of the sky and be like, nope, we have to get back to realistic prices. But I mean, yeah, I mean, people need housing. That's a number one need, so it will always be there. And with interest rates so high, their next best is renting, because I mean, you got to live somewhere. So there will always be a need and a high demand for it.
Do you find that with, especially in the Florida market, we've had corporations coming in and buying homes and creating even full rental neighborhoods. Do you find that that has been competition for you guys, or do you feel like there's enough to go around right now? What does that look like?
I mean, there's enough to go around because those are going to be build to rent communities. And again, Jacksonville in itself is, the largest landmass here in Florida. So there's people moving all day, every day. There's a need for housing. I don't see it as competition at all. I think it's great that there's other avenues for people when they want to rent. And again, rentals will people need them everywhere, so it doesn't really matter if there's going to be communities built up or apartments or whatever. I mean, everybody has a different need, and a lot of people like the home because they get a garage and they don't have neighbors above or below or beside, and
Sure.
yard. So it's just one of those things that everybody has a specific need, so it's really not a big deal.
I just see it. There's a lot of rental properties that have come on the market on the commercial space, as far as multifamily projects that have come up in North Florida. It feels like every 2 miles you drive, there's another apartment complex coming online. It's just one of those things to where the inventory demand over the last few years, it was driven by COVID or driven by people moving into the state. Do you see that continuing? Do you see that being like that demand is going to continue to increase in the North Florida area, or do you think that that will soften as well?
I think that we'll still have the demand. I mean, a lot of people still want to come here. I mean, there's a billion reasons why Florida is great, obviously. So I still see that people are going to come here. We have great schools. You're going to have college kids moving in. I mean, we're a huge military town, so you're always getting people who are getting stationed here. So I definitely think that the demand is still going to be here. With the apartment complexes, obviously, yeah, they're every way you look, but that's again for somebody who wants to live in that kind of area that has the amenities, and you're paying for that stuff. You're paying a premium to get the pools and the gyms and all the things, where when single family it may be a little bit less expensive, but you don't get all that stuff. So it's going to be something for everybody, but I definitely think the demand is still going to be there in years to come.
Sure. Well, and I've been in county planning meetings. I've heard the city of Jacksonville and even St. Johns County talk about the fact that we have a lack of affordable housing in this area. Not that that is going to be directly filled by you and Roundtable Realty, because I think that you're after a different segment of that market. But how does that affect, I guess, the area, and do you guys see that need is being met for the future demand of it, or do you think that there's an opportunity for somebody to fill in the North Florida area?
I definitely think there is a need for it. I mean, affordable living. I mean, there's just not much. I mean, you have to think, I mean, we try to, our owners want to obviously make money and,
Sure.
stuff like that, but the cost of living, I mean, you have to think that insurance has gone up every single year. Um, Vendors have went up every single year. Um, Insurance, everything's going up. And so we have to, make the prices a little different to make sure that that covers, their costs as well. So it's one of those things. And so it's definitely hard to find affordable living for people because with rising prices on our side, we unfortunately have to do the same thing on the other side to make sure that it makes sense for everybody. So I definitely think that there is a market for affordable living, and it would be great if somebody could figure that out. Obviously, not really my expertise, but yeah, there is definitely a need for it. And even I own rental properties in the downtown, and then what we're renting those out for are just, I mean, years ago they were $600-700, and now they're $1,200-1,300, and it's just wild to see, an area like that get rent like that. But people have to have a place to live, so it's wild to see the numbers.
No doubt. Well, and I think that this area really has been affected by um, when people can work at home, when people don't have to live in the city that they receive their paycheck from. We've had a lot of people move into the North Florida area that work remotely, and the job market in Jacksonville or in North Florida doesn't necessarily support some of the rising costs that we've seen in our area. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity, and I think what it shows is how synergistic a society really is, because if you don't have the support of the jobs market to support the real estate values or the rent or the rental costs, it's a vicious cycle, because then you have people moving further and further out, and those lower cost or those lower wage jobs, they don't necessarily want to fill them in that city anymore because it's not worth driving into them.
No, 100%. I mean, I had a tenant yesterday who was like, I can't do the rent increase because unfortunately my job hasn't increased. And so I see it every day of tenants who fill it. And of course, we're like, hey, we'll work with you. Not a big deal because, you don't want vacancies if you have a great
Sure.
tenant. But yeah, I mean, I had the conversation yesterday. She's like, my rent or my pay, my income has not went up. So, I can't really have the rent go up. And I'm like, I totally understand. So, these are the same conversations we're having every single day.
Right. Well, and you have a flip side of that as well. Like you said, you have people that buy properties. They buy them as an investment for themselves and for their families, so that they have something that is it's a revenue generating asset for them. They didn't buy it to lose money on it. They didn't buy it just to give somebody else somewhere to live. They bought it for something to make money for them and their family. So it works both ways, and I think that that's the hard part of your job, or that's the hard part of the market, is the fact that you have all these rising costs around real estate, but you have individuals or families, they're real people behind your that are your customers, that didn't get into this to, they weren't a nonprofit, and they weren't doing it just to give somebody else something. They did it to help better them and their families.
Yeah. And I mean, that is kind of I don't want to say the hard part, but definitely before, I even take on an owner, I have these conversations to let them know, like, hey, these are the prices and this is what it's going to look like. And here's the net and here's this. And I try to have these conversations before they even buy them because we get people who reach out and like, hey, I'm thinking about this. And so we try to direct them to let them know, like, hey, if you're looking for this to be like a cash cow, here's the numbers at the end of the day, so they can make better decisions. And if obviously they already own the house, it is what it is. But yeah, we're trying to help them make good decisions so they're not stuck with something and then getting upset of like it's not making any money. So it's a balancing act of giving the right information and making sure they're educated so they know what they're getting into, and we can't overpromise under deliver type thing.
No doubt. Well, I think everybody read Rich Dad Poor Dad at one point in their life, and they all thought that they could be a property investor then.
True. That's a good book though.
It is a good book. So, Cindy, is there anything that you're doing personally to help with the affordable housing crisis that we have right now in Florida?
So I actually work for a foundation that I partner with, and they're called the Landmark Foundation. And what we do is we find houses that are in not great areas. So let's say downtown, things like that,
Sure.
that really need a lot of love. So we buy these properties and then we go in and renovate them from the top down. Everything's brand new. And then we are selling them under market value, to buyers who otherwise wouldn't qualify. And we have incentives, and we work with a lender who gives them some down payment assistance, things like that. And these are people who otherwise wouldn't qualify for a normal mortgage, but they're getting a brand new house that's going to be something that they don't have to do maintenance on for years to come, because we're making it as maintenance free as possible. So we've done 3 houses so far for the Landmark Foundation. They are owned by Landmark Title, who every closing that somebody does with them, they take a portion of that and put it to the Landmark Foundation, so we can continue to do this, in all these areas that otherwise, wouldn't be, I would say, desirable to other like flippers and things like that. So that's really what we focus on, is just houses that normal investors wouldn't even want to touch, because the numbers wouldn't make sense to flip it. So we're taking that and then renovating them and letting somebody have a brand new house.
That's absolutely amazing. That's tremendous. Are you working with like the LISCs and the other agencies in Jacksonville that try to help people as far as education and giving them down payment assistance? Are those the types of organizations that you guys partner with on some of those projects?
Correct. So it's the lender does a new home buyer orientation seminar. They get them all prepared to be a homeowner, talk about their credit, get them situated, the payments, how it's going to work. So they educate them on that side of being a first-time home buyer, and how the process is going to work.
So if somebody is listening to this and they feel like that fits them, or they feel like that's like a category that they fall in, how do they learn more?
So you can go to on Facebook, we have the Landmark Foundation. On there, you can see all of the projects that we have, all the things that we're working on. We do a lot of different events in the community. So you can definitely find out more there about what the foundation is doing.
One of the things that we talked about before we even started recording today was the fact that people sometimes overconfidently think that they can manage their own property. Can you tell me a little bit about some of your experiences that you've had where people, make that mistake, or make that, they think they kind of wade in the water a little deeper than what they thought they were gonna?
Yeah, I mean, I have a property now where the owner bought it, and it's a triplex. And the so yeah, she's an investor, bought it as a triplex, and then had somebody manage it, and the manager, I guess, got into drugs and stole all the money and let all these random people live there, and they trashed the place, and it cost her thousands and thousands of dollars, and we're in the middle of evicting one of them, who we have no idea who they even are. So it's one of those things that she was like, I'm going to buy this as an investment. It's going to be great. It's going to bring in all this money. And then on the flip side, it's like, but there's bigger things, behind it. So we've taken over management, got a majority of the people out, had to renovate 2 of the units, waiting for the 3rd unit. So it's one of those that, I tell people that I'm like, you just have to be aware of what the situations can happen, because we see it all the time of, people thinking like this is going to be easy and I'm just going to make money. And then, bad things happen, unfortunately. And then I have to come in and clean them up, which is fine because I love problem solving and challenges and stuff like that. But it can be costly.
No doubt. Well, and I've got to imagine as far as reputational risk as well, if you're running a triplex, or even if you have a quadruplex or anything that you're running, where if people start thinking that you have drug dealers or drug users that are in your property, then you're not going to get a nice family to move next door, or somebody who's going to be a quality tenant at that point. Like kind of breeds like, wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's why we had to pretty much start fresh on this one. Like, everybody's got to go. The non-paying tenants got to go. We're almost done with that eviction. But yeah, I mean, we are literally starting from the ground up on this one, of just getting it back to life, renovating all of them, and then starting fresh and getting good tenants in there, and, trying to hopefully help this owner get back, to good graces. Cause, obviously this has been hard on her to be like, hey, look at all this bad stuff that's happening. But it's a problem, but it's something that is fixable. It just takes time. But yeah, I mean, we have to literally start fresh and get new people in there and start over.
Well, and I got to imagine in today's environment, not that you can say this to somebody after they've already gotten in that situation, but it's much easier to start right than to get knee deep in that and then have to walk back out of that, because in today's environment it's somewhat difficult to evict people, isn't it?
So it really depends. If it's a pretty cut and dry case, we can get them done within 4 weeks. If
Okay.
it's there's no lease and now we're he said she said and things like that, I mean, we've had an eviction that took 2 years to get done before. I mean, and it was just, this guy knew what he was doing. He was a professional, I guess, person who knew how to get out of these evictions. And my goodness, it was 2 years getting this guy out, but there was no lease. So it was just, he said this happened. And then we're like, nope, that's not what happened. It was just the longest battle ever to get somebody out before.
That's crazy. So, not that you have a crystal ball, or, not that I'm asking you to predict the future, but short term, in the next 5 years, where do you see the real estate market going in the North Florida area?
I mean, I really think that, I mean, at some point, the prices are going to have to stabilize at some point. I mean, we can't just keep going higher and higher and higher without salaries getting bigger and bigger. Obviously, I think interest rates are going to kind of sit where they are for a while. I think that we got real spoiled with the COVID interest rates, which,
You mean the free money?
yeah, I mean, look, you couldn't pay me to sell my house right now because that interest rate's so pretty. So, I don't think we're ever going to see those again. We're not going to see the twos and the threes, the fours. I think hopefully one day it'll stabilize in the fives. But I think that the interest rates are here to stay for a while. I think that the prices are still going to continue to either stabilize or continue to go up a little bit. And the rental market, I think that it's still, I mean, the prices are going to slightly go up. I mean, we can't go, crazy, or, there's just too many, like we said, too many apartments and things like that coming up. But I mean, I think that our rental market here is solid and it's going to continue to stay that way.
I don't disagree with you whatsoever. I think that you brought it up, interest rates are going to stay where they're at. They might even tick a little higher before the end of the year. And I think what people don't realize a lot of the times is that people who qualified to buy a home at 3% and 4%, when those rates go to 7% and 8%, some of those people no longer qualify to even get a mortgage. So they're now out of the market, and now they're a customer of yours. Now they have to rent. Like, even if they wanted to buy, now they are looking for a quality place to rent because they just can't afford, they don't qualify even to be in the market to buy a home. So I think that's a huge plus for property management companies such as yourself in this area.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they do qualify for something, obviously it's going to be a lower priced house and it may not be in the area they want and the house that they, truly love. And so, yeah, it's kind of like a caveat. So, yeah, then they're going to decide, well, I'll rent and see what happens, because people, I think, are hoping, waiting that the interest rates will go down. But I don't foresee them going down. Like you said, I could even see them going up a little bit more. But just the affordability, I mean, personally, we looked into buying a house and it had everything we wanted. And man, I talked to a lender and he was like, yeah, this is going to be your monthly payment. And I mean, it was 4 times what we pay now. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, there's just no, like, that's crazy to get a payment 4 times what we're making or what we're paying now. Like, it's just, I mean, it's just wild.
No doubt. Well, Cindy, you and Roundtable have excellent resources for people that are interested in either leasing their own properties or being a customer and leasing a property. And you yourself are an incredible resource for people. If they want to learn more about you and about Roundtable, where can they find you guys?
So they can go to www.rtrpm.com. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube.
Very good. Cindy, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
When you really step back and you look at how our communities function, we really are a symbiotic society. People before property couldn't be a better motto to follow for a real estate company. Cindy and her team focus on the most important part of the equation, but they do a pretty darn good job with the property side as well. The work that she and her team do with the Landmark Foundation help create additional affordable housing in the Jacksonville market, which is sorely needed. As more people flood into the state, the cost of living has skyrocketed, but wages have not. That's a conversation for another podcast at another time. but it's a problem that has been created and a solution has yet to present itself. For now, that's going to wrap us up. I appreciate you joining, and we'll catch you guys next time.